To Zanarkand, a Final Fantasy X fan-made audiobook project. Chapter 4. The Blitzball Captain. Light bends, shifts, warps. Water, endless water. Too much, above, below, inside, drowning without drowning, floating without weight, no air, no sky, no ground. Up, down, no difference. The sea hums, vibrating inside the bones, thick, heavy, pulling him deeper. Words in the waves, twisting, distorting. Not words, not right, not real? Ject. Laughing. A shape too big, too familiar, too distant. Cast in shadows, stretching into the horizon, bleeding into the currents. A voice in thunder rolls like the tide, like home, but not home. Salt on the tongue, salt in the eyes. Hands reaching, reaching. For what or who? The ocean shifts, becomes light, becomes air. A sunrise burning on the waves, bleeding gold, stretching forever. The water still, too still, flat like glass, a mirror with no sky to reflect. But something moves beneath it. A shadow, a mountain, a living wall of grey flesh, passing, slow, endless, not hunting, not chasing, just there. It always has been. It always will be. The sea is pulling, pulling, pulling. The dream is sinking. Hands claw at the surface. The reflection shatters. The ocean swallows him whole. He just woke with the warmth on his face and water cradling his body. The sun was hot. The water was warm. Everything ached. The sky above him was blindingly bright, the heat sinking into his skin, the weight of it almost comforting after the suffocating cold of the abyss. The gentle rock of the ocean carried him in lazy sways, small ripples lapping against his body. His breathing was slow, uneven, as his mind clawed its way back to awareness. For a long moment, he just floated, his limbs weightless, his heartbeat sluggish in his ears. He was alive. The realization hit slowly, like a delayed shock. I'm alive. His muscles tensed, hands twitching, flexing as if to test if they still worked. He dragged in a deep breath, sharp, almost afraid the air would vanish if he didn't take enough of it. It burned his lungs. It was real. He sat up fast, water splashing around him as he spun, panic kicking through his chest before his thoughts could catch up. Riku! His voice ripped through the air, hoarse and ragged. But no one answered. Clear, crystal blue water surrounded him, shallow enough that he could see the sandy bottom beneath his feet. Schools of small, colourful fish darted around, weaving between coral and rocks in shades of red, blue, yellow, and green. There was no wreckage or debris or even bodies. Not even Riku. His pulse pounded in his ears. Where was she? Where was the ship? Where was... Wham! Something slammed into the back of his head, sending him lurching forward with a yelp. The sting was sharp, jarring him out of his thoughts. Whatever had bounced off him with a hollow splash landed in the water nearby. Tidus winced, rubbing a sore spot on the back of his skull with a muttered, "Wow, what the hell?" His eyes flicked to the object now bobbing in the clear sea beside him. A blitzball. For a second he just stared at it. It was so absurd that his brain simply refused to process it. Then behind him, shouting. Tidus turned, the water rippling as he twisted around, and finally he saw it. A beach stretched out before him, golden sands lined with tall palm trees, their fronds swaying lazily in the breeze. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, the sunlight almost too bright after the suffocating darkness he had been lost in. And on that beach, a group of men, all shirtless and dressed in matching yellow waders, standing near the shoreline. A Blitzball team. They waved their arms, calling out to him if he was okay. The shock faded as something else took its place. A flicker of familiarity was probably the best word he could think of. A piece of his old life sliding into place for the first time since sin had torn it away. In that moment, Tidus put all thoughts of sin and Riku and Zanarkand to the back of his mind and grinned. He reached out for the ball and tossed it high into the air, letting it spin, feeling the weight of it. He caught it and tossed it again, this time much, much higher, and with a deep breath, he dove. His body cut through the water, every movement effortless, natural, right. His feet planted against the sandy ocean floor. He pushed off, hard. Breaking the surface, he launched into the air, twisting, aligning his body at just the right angle. The ball reached its peak in the air, and his foot connected. A brutal, perfect bicycle kick sent the Blitzball rocketing toward the shore. The men barely had time to react. The ball whistled past one of their heads, missing by inches before disappearing deep into the tree line. Tidus landed back in the water gracefully and just allowed himself to float a little longer, letting the moment settle, before he kicked toward shore. His body ached everywhere, bruises blooming under his skin from whatever the hell happened before he woke up here. Halfway there, a dull throb started up between his eyes. He winced, rubbing his forehead, only to hiss at the sharp sting of pain. His fingers came away slick with blood. Great, he muttered, as if today hadn't been weird enough. The sun beat down, blistering hot, drying his clothes even as he sloshed through the shallows, feet finally sinking into the warm, golden sand. The moment he stepped onto the beach, one of the men broke from the group and strode toward him with an easy confidence, arms swinging loose at his sides. He was bigger than the others, shoulders broad, muscles built from years of work in the sun. His orange hair was wild, sticking up in every direction, and his uniform was the same as the rest, save for the hand-woven armband wrapped around one bicep. Tidus could see the craftsmanship even from a few feet away, braided from thick sun-bleached reeds, woven with seashells and smooth, polished stones. The man grinned wide, throwing out a booming laugh as he clapped Tidus on the back, nearly knocking him forward. "Ha! You ain't no amateur, that's for sure. Where you playing from, huh?" Tidus, still riding the adrenaline of the kick, smirked back. "The Zanarkand Abes." The man's smile faltered. For just a second, everything seemed to go quiet. "Hey, what team you say?" The other players were muttering now, exchanging glances, shifting where they stood. Like a slap in the face, Tidus remembered what Riku had said about Zanarkand. He forced a laugh, waving a hand. Forget it. I got too close to sin, I think. My head's all messed up. I don't even know where I am." The tension melted immediately. The man nodded like he had heard that story 100 times before. Sin's toxin, huh? That'll mess you up real bad. You lucky, yeah? Most people don't walk away from that. He looked Tidus over, nodding toward his forehead and the cut it bore. "Come on, let's get that looked at." Then turning to the rest of the team, he clapped his hands together. "Aye, back to practice, boys." The team snapped back into action, drills resuming as though nothing had happened. The man turned to Tidus, offering his hand. "Your name's Waka. Coach and captain of the Besaid Oryx, brother." Tidus took the handshake, firm and steady. "Tidus," he hesitated. "Did anyone else wash up here? Wreckage? Anything?" Waka shook his head, tossing a blitzball up and down idly. "Nothing like that. You were the only thing the tide brought in." A cold weight settled in Tidus's gut. Riku was nowhere. There was no wreckage, No sign of the Albed ship. Nothing. Waka must have seen the look on his face, because he tilted his head. Why, you lose somebody? Titus wasn't sure how to answer. He barely knew Riku, but after everything, she was the closest thing he had to an anchor in all this. Maybe, he admitted. I don't know. Everything's kind of hazy. Waka hummed thoughtfully, placed the Blitzball under one arm, and then clapped a hand on Titus's back, nearly knocking him forward again. Come, come. We go back to the village, yeah? Maybe somebody seen something. Waka, occasionally hopping his Blitzball off the ground, led Titus off the hot sand and onto a small trail that led into the tree line, the scent of salt and tropical flowers thick in the air. Titus was used to hot weather. Zanarkand was no stranger to it, but it was nice to be in the shade of the palms and out of the oppressive heat of the beach. As they trudged along the path, Waka confidently striding along, Titus plucked up the courage to ask what was really on his mind. Can I, ask you something? Go on. Waka didn't even look over his shoulder. Zanarkand was really destroyed 1,000 years ago? He felt stupid asking the question. Waka's stride slowed just a fraction. His expression darkened a little, like he had heard the question before, but never liked answering it. Ah, so you remember that story, eh? He said with a sigh. Long time ago, Spira was full of big cities, yeah? People had all kind of machines, doing everything for 'em. Didn't have to work, didn't have to fight. Just play, party, live easy. Titus noted the use of the Spira word. So that's where he was. Spira. Waka's voice turned graver, gaze shifting toward the horizon. Then sin came, wiped 'em all out. Every last Machina city. Zanarkand too, yeah? Ain't been nothing left but ruins ever since, brother. Titus felt something cold crawl up his spine. So it's true, he muttered, more to himself than anyone. Waka sighed, running a hand through his hair. Some say sin is punishment, yeah? For people playing God, making too much of them machines. So now, we all gotta pay for it. Keep praying. Keep repenting. That's the way to go. Then, as if catching himself, he let out a rough laugh, shaking his head. Still don't mean it ain't hard, yeah? Ain't like we were the ones who did all that, but we the ones who gotta suffer. Always the same story. Titus was quiet. It was just like Riku had said. Waka and Riku couldn't both be lying. So then, was this real? Was his Zanarkand really gone? 1,000 years? How? Waka suddenly grinned, elbowing him playfully. But you, brother, coming in here talking about the Zanarkand Abes. Ha ha! Now that's a good one. Titus forced a smirk. Yeah, hilarious. Waka nudged him again, grinning wide. Hey, I ain't saying your team never existed, yeah? But if they livin' in some big fancy city, bet they was real soft, huh? Titus snorted, rolling his shoulders. You'd be surprised. Waka laughed, throwing an arm over Titus's shoulders. All right, brother, come on, let's get you patched up. As they walked, Titus's mind spun. Everything that had happened, everything that was, frankly, still happening, all started with sin. If sin was the thing that brought him here, then maybe, just maybe, it could take him back. For now, there was no point worrying about the where or the when. He just had to keep moving until he figured out how to get home. The path from the beach wound steadily uphill, the soft white sand giving way to lush greenery, a narrow dirt trail cutting through the tropical undergrowth. The salty air from the ocean lingered, mixing with the scent of damp earth and those sun-warmed leaves. Titus walked beside Waka, and the heat already worked its way under his skin, sweat clinging to his back. It wasn't unpleasant, just different. The sun in Zanarkand had almost been like this, but the air was hot and heavier here. Towering palm trees swayed lazily in the breeze, their massive fronds casting shifting shadows along the trail. The sound of rushing water echoed through the air as Titus could make out a cascading waterfall, spilling over jagged rock faces in the distance, sending mist into the air like scattered sunlight. Birds cawed in unfamiliar songs, blending with the distant crash of waves. It really was beautiful here. He wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist, glancing toward Waka. So, where exactly is this place? Waka grinned, adjusting the blitzball under his arm. You say, brother, one of the smallest islands in Spira, but let me tell you, nothing better, yeah? Real quiet, good people, cleanest water you ever seen. And the best part? He spread his arms, gesturing all around them. No big cities, no machina, just the land and the sea like it's supposed to be. He just nodded, taking it all in. No big cities, no machina, just jungle, beach, waterfalls, and sky. It was a stark contrast to what he had known. Zanarkand had been alive with light and sound, humming with energy, the skyline a constant blur of motion. Here, the only hum came from the wind through the trees and the distant call of birds, not to mention that waterfall. As they continued uphill, the path wound past an old crumbling structure, half hidden by thick vines. Titus slowed, tilting his head at the worn, rounded stone. A little further up the trail he spotted more, half-buried ruins. Jagged steel towers, long since collapsed. The faintest traces of old wiring and rust, barely visible under layers of moss. Waka caught his gaze and let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. Remember what I said about ancient Machina cities? He gestured vaguely at the ruins. Well, some of it's still here. Just gotta look close enough. Titus ran his fingers over the rusted steel as they passed. 1,000 years ago. Had this been a building? A home? Had people truly lived here the way he had in Zanarkand? You ever explore these? He asked, curiosity getting the better of him, and really just looking for something to say. Waka grinned. Oh yeah, me and my brother used to run all over him as kids. Drive the grown-ups crazy, yeah? Titus smirked at that. Sounds like fun. Yeah, till you fall and bust your leg. Waka laughed, shaking his head. They say it's bad luck to mess with old places, but man, when you a kid, you ain't listening to no old folks telling ghost stories. Ha ha! Titus's grin faltered slightly as the words brother and family echoed in his mind. He hesitated, then shrugged. You got a brother, huh? Waka nodded, looking ahead toward the path. Yeah, had one. There was something in his tone, something Titus wasn't sure he wanted to ask about. Instead, Waka turned the question on him. What about you? Got any family back home? Titus hesitated again. He could have said a lot. Could have talked about his mother, about how she had always been waiting for someone who never came home. Could have mentioned Jecht, the legend, the ghost that had haunted every part of his life, his game, his name, his damn shadow that never let him breathe. Instead, he forced a shrug. Nah, just me. Waka glanced at him, then nodded, accepting that answer without prying. The dirt road gradually pulled them out of the dense jungle, the towering palms and thick underbrush thinning as they climbed higher. The air grew lighter, the sound of the ocean becoming clearer the further they went. The hill they were climbing was pretty steep, but Waka didn't seem bothered. He walked with an easy rhythm, one arm swinging loosely by his side while the other cradled the blitzball. For a few moments it was quiet, just the crunch of dirt underfoot and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. Then Waka cleared his throat, glancing at Titus out of the corner of his eye. Gotta say, brother, you a wicked shot with a blitzball. Titus grinned and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, you could say that. Waka exhaled a short laugh, then scratched the back of his head. Actually, I was thinking. Got a favor to ask you. Titus smirked. Let me guess. You want me on your team, right? Waka grinned at being called out so fast. Well, you ain't wrong. He gestured widely with both hands as he explained, his voice picking up energy. Listen, there's a big tournament coming up. All the teams in Spear are gonna be there. Huge event, brother, in Lucca. Whole place goes nuts for it. And I figure, somebody, they gotta recognize you, yeah? Titus blinked. Lucca? Riku had said he should go to Lucca. Waka kept going, oblivious to Titus's sudden deep thoughts. Think about it. If you play, you might find someone who knows you. And in the meantime, we get a boost in our odds. Win-win. So what do you say, huh? Come on, come on. Titus hesitated for only a second before shrugging. Sure thing. Eh. Waka pumped a fist in celebration. At the top of the hill, the jungle finally gave way to open sky, revealing a wide plateau with a black stone monument standing at its center. The monument was akin to a black stone pillar, rough and weathered, its surface etched with faded symbols, some nearly eroded away by time. A marker of something, though Titus wasn't sure what. But beyond it, the village. The Sade village stretched out below them, a cluster of thatched roof huts nestled between rolling hills and steep cliffs that overlooked the ocean. Streams and waterfalls cut through the land, their water shimmering in the late afternoon sun, feeding into small pools that reflected the sky. Everything looked so peaceful, almost too peaceful, like it had never seen destruction. It had never known fear. The view was truly breathtaking. Waka stood beside him, the wind tugging at his hair, his arms crossed over his chest. This is where I was born, yeah? His voice had a softness to it, a mix of nostalgia and quiet pride. Started Blitz when I was 5. Joined the Aurochs when I was 13. He let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. That was 10 years ago. And in 10 years, we never won a single game. Titus raised an eyebrow. Damn. Waka sighed, stretching his arms over his head. After last year's tournament, I figured it was just time to hang it up. Felt right, yeah? He looked out over the village, the sea breeze lifting his orange hair. But even after I quit, my mind always wandered back to the game. Titus smirked. Yeah, well, a decade without a win'll do that. Waka groaned, shooting him a look. Brother, you ain't gotta say it like that. Titus grinned, but Waka wasn't done. His voice dipped like he was remembering something heavier. Last year was supposed to be my big shot, yeah? My big chance. But I couldn't focus. Titus raised an eyebrow. Nice excuse. Hey, hey! Waka shot him a playful shove, laughing despite himself. Titus rolled his shoulders. So let me guess. You want to go out with a bang this year? One last tournament before you retire for real? Waka snorted. Something like that. Titus nodded knowingly. All right, so what's our goal then? Waka blinked. Huh? Titus smirked. What's our goal? Waka shrugged. Long as we play our best, I can walk away happy. Titus immediately threw up his hands. No, 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 no. That's not how this works. Waka frowned. What? Titus jabbed a finger at him. When you play in a Blitzball tournament, you play to win. So when I say, what's our goal? You say, victory. For a second, Waka just stared at him, processing the words. Then he grabbed Titus in a headlock. Ha! I don't know where you from, but I like the way you think, brother. He ruffled Titus's hair, laughing as he dragged him forward. Man, this team is gonna rock! Careful there, Waka. I don't want to have to do any paperwork now. The voice carried over the hill, light-hearted but firm. Titus and Waka turned to see two men standing near the stone marker now. The first man, the one who had spoken, was taller, with a lean but strong build, his flame-red hair cropped short. He carried himself with an easy confidence, his arms crossed over his chest, his eyes sharp as they swept over the two of them. Beside him stood a younger, shorter man, with a nervous energy about him. His hair was darker, his posture straighter, almost like he was trying to stand to attention even though no one had told him to. Both of them wore different clothing, but over they had the same metal chest piece, a sturdy, practical plate reinforced with leather, bearing a faint emblem in the center that, if Titus squinted, he could probably say it resembled a C. Waka, still keeping Titus locked in the playful headlock, grinned wide. A little out of your jurisdiction, eh, Luzu? Luzu, the red-haired one, grinned back. Walker released Titus as the two men pulled each other into a quick half-hug, chest-bump, shoulder-clap thing that Titus had seen so many times between old teammates back in Zanarkand. Luzu turned to him next, giving him a brief once-over. I don't think we've met. I'm Luzu, and this is Gata. The younger man just lifted a hand in a somewhat awkward wave, glancing at Titus again. Where'd you come from? Titus hesitated. Waka cut in before he had to fumble through another half-truth. You ain't gonna believe this, brother. Washed up on the beach after an attack from Sin. That got a reaction. Gata's expression shifted instantly, eyes widening as he took a reflexive step back, as if Titus still had Sin on him somehow. Luzu, by contrast, kept his cool, but his eyes flicked to the cut on Titus's forehead. How's your head? Titus glanced at Waka before answering. Still a bit fuzzy. Waka nodded, backing him up. Yeah, he's having some trouble remembering stuff. Didn't even remember Besaid. Titus felt a twinge of guilt. It wasn't really a lie. He didn't really know a thing about Besaid, Spira, or anything else in this world. Might as well be a memory loss. Luzu seemed to take that answer at face value. Well then, let's start fresh. Gata and I are crusaders. He jerked his chin toward the younger man, who nodded. Titus raised an eyebrow. Crusaders? Luzu nodded. We're an old order, been around for hundreds of years. Our mission's simple. Protect the people of Spira from sin. We fight it wherever we can. Try to keep it from causing too much damage. When we can't fight it, we evacuate. Titus frowned. You guys fight that thing? Like, for real? Gata puffed up slightly, the stiffness in his posture shifting to pride. Of course! Luzu shot him a look. We try, he amended. Titus didn't miss Gata's expression as he looked at his feet. Luzu then turned back to Waka. As it so happens, I was actually looking for you. You got a minute? Waka nodded, gesturing for Titus to wait. Be right back, brother. As Luzu and Waka stepped away, Titus found himself alone with the young Gata. The younger man shifted his weight awkwardly, glancing at the ground, then back at Titus. He looked like he wanted to say something, but wasn't sure if he should. Then, before he could stop himself, the words tumbled out. You really saw Sin? Titus blinked at him, caught off guard. Yeah. Gata's eyes widened. Like, actually up close? Titus hesitated. The question should have been easy, but just thinking about it made something heavy settle in his chest. How the hell was he supposed to describe it? He rubbed the back of his neck, glancing off toward the horizon. I mean, yeah. Gata let out a breath, almost like he'd been holding it in. Man, I've only ever heard about Sin from stories. Seen the damage, sure, but to actually be there. He shook his head, almost in awe. Titus shifted uncomfortably, gripping his forearm. He wasn't sure what he expected from this conversation, but awe sure as hell wasn't it. Gata kept staring at him, hungry for details. What was it like? Titus swallowed. It's... He tried to find the words, but everything that came to mind felt wrong. It was too big. It was too fast. It was too unreal. It was something that shouldn't exist. and yet it was something that just did. He shook his head. I don't know, man, just huge and wrong. That wasn't the answer Gotta wanted, but he nodded anyway, like he was storing the information away. And you survived? He just let out a short, humorless laugh. Twice now, I guess. Gotta's head snapped up. Twice? He just winced. Shit. He hadn't meant to say that. Gotta gawked at him, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't even process it. You fought Sin twice, and you're still standing? Fought was a strong word. He'd been dragged, tossed, drowned, spit out. But fought? Not really. Titus waved a hand. I wouldn't say fought. More like got thrown around like a rag doll and somehow didn't die. Gotta still looked impressed. Even so, his voice was almost reverent. Man, you gotta be something special. Titus opened his mouth, ready to correct him, when Walker chose that moment to return, clapping a firm hand on his shoulder. Aye, brother, we gotta get moving. Gotta still looked like he had questions, but Luzu had already motioned for him to follow. Luzu gave them both a serious look. Anyway, Luzu continued, you two should keep an eye out. There have been fiends on the road today. Waka waved a hand. We almost at the village anyway. Besides, he tossed his blitzball in the air and caught it deftly. I think we can handle them. Titus eyed the ball quizzically, but Luzu just gave a nod and motioned for Gotta to follow as they continued down the road. Gotta lingered just a second longer, still looking at Titus like he was some kind of bad omen, before finally turning away. Titus watched them go, then glanced toward Waka. Fiends? Waka grinned, clapping him on the back again as they started walking. Don't worry about it, brother.